Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News Channel. Still with me in the studio, I have Professor Bola Akintenwa, Director General, Bolisa Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Yemi Adamolekun is also here, Executive Director, Enough is Enough, and Professor David Awurawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos. And I'm also still expecting Modele Sharafa Yusuf, veteran journalist and Arise News analyst. Well, gentlemen, good to have you here. Prof, let me start with you. Desmond Tutu passed on. He was a great supporter of the anti-apartheid struggle. At some point, he opposed the ANC because he thought that the ANC was overreaching itself. But his major legacy is that, look, freedom, equality, these are important values. And he used the pulpit as a weapon. He weaponized the pulpit to promote basic interests about humanity, about justice, about equality, and about the values that connect us together. But no man can live forever. So he's dead now. Prof, can you, along the lines of our guest,
Femi Badejo.
Yes, Professor Femi Badejo, who worked with the United Nations and who is a professor of international relations, comment on the significance, the essence of this man, Desmond Tutu, the Arch.
You see, Femi Badejo is a priori a politologist and then an international functionary. Before we begin to discuss his professorial assignment, what I like most in his presentation analysis is the empirical approach to the analysis, which has been missing. Your question, for instance, dealing with the relationship, the nexus between Desmond Tutu and Nigeria. Now, he provided an empirical background that is particularly needed in understanding Nigeria's role during the anti-apartheid struggle. And I can only wish that whoever is in the position of policy making will listen to the extended implication of his submission. Very good. That Desmond Tutu played an active part during Nigeria's civil war. He did say that in spite of the general saying that no victor, no vanquished, that Desmond Tutu raised the need for the Nigerian government in particular, international community in general, to ensure the protection of the rights of the Igbo people. That is still part of his activity. He was always seeking justice everywhere. And you too did mention the role he played in Israel, in the context of Nigeria, in many places. And so, because the South Africans are yet to understand the magnitude, the extent of Nigeria's commitment to the anti-apartheid struggle by that time, I think with the demise of Desmond Tutu, there is the need for the federal government of Nigeria to still look for people that have knowledge about what transpired. I love the aspect of Desmond Tutu trying to link up with MKO Abiola, OBJ, when he was under incarceration. These are issues on which we have very little information in the literature. So if I say that Femi Badejo is a politologist I'm now saying that, look, he has been studying politics for long. He was lecturer in Unilab before he went to an international organization, to the UN system, now an international functionary. And
Nice.
thank God he now came back precisely as an academic professor. That point is very significant. And the mere fact that he explicated the issues from an academic perspective, meaning that there's no bias, no sentiments, I think people who are researching on the demise, the death of Desmond Tutu, they should look at it from that angle. For me, Desmond Tutu, I want to remember him more as a protocolar archbishop. He believed strongly in the use of protocol to promote, inter-ethnic, interstate, interpersonal relationships. For instance, when Nelson Mandela died, and there was to be a state funeral, ceremony in Kunu, in his village where he developed, he was not invited to the event simply because of the reasons that you did give and that Professor Badejo also gave. That, look, Desmond Tutu was constantly criticizing the African National Congress, the government as well, pointing accusing fingers to them to say, look, you can't do this, you can't do that one. And to borrow your own words, he weaponized, the pulpit to make a case, to fight, for people. So in this case, he was not invited because of his attitudinal disposition to government policies. So in this case, he didn't attend on the basis that his name was not put on the accreditation list. Here in Nigeria, we hardly respect protocol and etiquette. We just believe you can be invited to a party and you can ask a friend of yours, let's go together, and you will be going. But in this case, it is not like that. I think his position, promoting protocol and essentially justice, fairness, I think he should be remembered for this, and then let the government of Nigeria examine the rules of African leaders in this anti-apartheid struggle so that Nigeria can be on record permanently for posterity that we did more than any other country in this continent in the struggle.
Okay, I'd like to come to you, Professor David Aworawo. You are appraiser of the life and times of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the first black man to be Archbishop of the Dean of St. Mary's Cathedral, to take the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and to win the Gandhi Prize, and also he won the Nobel Prize in 1984. I hope I'm correct in that regard.
You are correct.
And the first black Archbishop of Cape Town. Now, the significance of his life, what he represents, and what lessons we can learn from his example.
The late Archbishop Desmond Tutu identified noble ideas and stood by these ideas throughout his life. That is what we should learn from the life and times of Desmond Tutu. That it is better to live a self-sacrificing life. It is better to pursue the common good. It is better to stand for the truth all the time. It is better to defend noble ideals. These are the things we learn from the life and times of Desmond Tutu. He was a colossus in many respects. As you could see, the way he grew, the way he, how he grew and the way he grew, and the ideas he stood for throughout his life. He never wavered in pursuing and defending those ideas. I think those are the lessons we need to learn from the life and times of Desmond. So let me pick a few of these issues. He stood against apartheid. by standing against apartheid, people hated him for different things. Some hated him for not supporting anti-apartheid enough. Some hated him for over-supporting it. Some hated him for not being Marxist and all that. But he was focused. His was that apartheid was a crime against humanity, and apartheid had to end in South Africa. And what people thought of him never really mattered. He was convinced of what was right, and he pursued that consistently. When he was defending the rights of Biafra during and after the Civil War, he was seen as pro-Biafra, but it never mattered. What mattered to him was that the humanity we share has to be protected and defended. The rights of people, irrespective of who they are and what they are and all that, or what the government, thought. And he was consistent about that. Fast forward to the June 12th, those who were incarcerated, for no just cause, those who were being oppressed by the military junta at that time, he stood and defended them. After the official apartheid ended in 1994, he was appointed the chairman of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Again, he identified what was right and stood by it. The question was, will South Africa pursue retributive justice or restorative justice? He chose the latter, restorative justice, which he called the third way. And that helped South Africa to heal wounds and to come out of, the bitterness of apartheid, and for, a nation where, mutual cooperation and all of that will take place. And that has helped South Africa to heal and develop, since 1994. So what the lesson to take from the life and times of Desmond Tutu is a life of self-sacrifice, a life of pursuit for the common good, a life of identifying ideals and standing by them. Those are the big lessons from the life and times of Desmond Tutu.
Well, Yemi Adam Alekun, I know you are there. I mean, you are the activist in the house. Do you think that anyone, Yemi Adam Alekun, is not there? Okay. Modele Sharafa Yusuf, are you there? Okay. Well, Professor Awurawa, let me come back to you. This whole point about lessons that we have learned. Do you think that South Africa, as a country, the government, as an institution, will you say anybody has learned any lessons post-Mandela? What is the future of South Africa? Because as you see now, we should keep thinking of the future of South Africa beyond Mandela, beyond 1994. What are your concerns?
Yeah, my concerns are that South Africa has not shown enough appreciation for what other African countries, especially Nigeria, did to help that country to end apartheid. We have seen what Nigerians and other Africans like Zimbabweans have suffered in South Africa, since the end of apartheid. And that is very concerning. Before the end of apartheid, what was thought was that when eventually South Africa succeeded in coming out of apartheid, South Africa will become a collaborator with Nigeria to be able to, lift Africa and put Africa on the global scene. That was the thought. But no sooner than South Africa, ended apartheid, than the country began to see itself as a competitor with other African countries like Nigeria and the rest of them. In 2013, I went to South Africa, and I went to one museum in Soweto. A young man came out and said, you are Nigerians. I love all of you. When Mandela was to be killed in prison, it was your countrymen, especially Obasanjo, that helped to save his life. that the story of Mandela we're telling today would not have been told, but for what your country and especially Obasanjo did. Well, he was a minority. And he said, I wish my countrymen would understand this and respect you people more. You know, there are very few South Africans who understand that and who are influenced by that in their reaction to, other Africans, especially Nigerians. So South Africa has been very disappointing in its policy towards other African states. It is true that countries must pursue their national interest, but a country must also remember where it is coming from. And then you also choose policies that, will reflect that and, of course, promote collective development. But South Africa has not done that. What I think needs to happen is that the leadership of South Africa needs to have a rethink. The education in South Africa needs to be restructured such that the contributions of other African states towards the country's liberation, especially Nigeria, needs to be, fully established and recognized. And South Africa needs to develop policies that will make her a collaborator with other African states such as Nigeria, Egypt, and the rest of them to ensure that the whole of Africa, the fortunes of Africa, the place of Africa on the international scene is, raised higher than what South Africa is doing now. So there's a whole lot that needs to change in, the way South Africa has carried on since the end of apartheid. South Africa did not just come out of apartheid out of the blues. There were people who committed resources, time, who committed funds, who committed even their lives to support South Africa and to ensure that apartheid came to an end in South Africa. When Mandela died a few years ago, I was shocked to see that those who stole the show were the British Prime Minister, American President, of course, one of our own was there at the time, as the President of United States. Even then, Nigeria just was nowhere to be seen. How can Mandela die and Nigeria will be nowhere to be seen in his burial? Jonathan was the president then. It was simply nowhere to be seen. Rather, the British Prime Minister was the one who was on the podium making all the speeches when successive prime ministers from Margaret Thatcher and all of them stood against the efforts of Africans to end apartheid in South Africa. These are the historical developments that South Africa needs to recognize so that it needs to see herself as a country that will collaborate with other African states, understand its past, and then lift Africa to a far higher place on the international scene. These are the issues I think we need to discussions that need to take place post Mandela and now post Desmond Tutu.
Tenewa is right here sitting with me, and he's been listening to you, Professor Awurawo. Well, Professor Akintenewa, at a point, you were in charge of international relations policy process for Nigeria. Do you agree with President Professor Awurawo that we have more or less mismanaged Nigeria-South Africa relations? And what do we need to do?
I think it's not an issue of agreeing or disagreeing with him. The methodological approach to his presentation is South Africa. He looked at the issues involved and he concluded that probably the government of Nigeria has not done much or well in managing the bilateral relationship. To a great extent, I will subscribe to his viewpoint. You see, the problem with Nigeria is that we have leaders who have eyes that do not see. They have ears that will not hear. Alaba Ogunsanwo, when he had a concurrent mandate, Botswana and all those areas.
Yes. Prof,
he drew
he's in Ibadan, right?
No, it's not in Lee City University, yes.
Yeah, he lives in Ibadan, yeah.
Emeritus professor.
Yes.
Now, he drew attention to the fact that, look, all happenings in Southern Africa in general, South Africa in particular, hardly is the name of Nigeria mentioned. He drew attention to the fact that streets were named after people perceived, leaders perceived, to have contributed meaningfully to the anti-apartheid struggle, etc. but the name of Nigeria was not there. Even, for instance, in Addis Ababa, the seat of the African Union, you will see names of leaders recognized generally. But nobody will think of an Azikiwe, nobody will think of a Nigerian leader. He drew attention to all this. But who listened to him? Who heard him? Or who did not listen to him? Everybody listened, but what did they do? Now, I drew attention to the fact that Bubamarwa, when he was High Commissioner
In South Africa.
in South Africa, he said he listened and he watched a radio television program during which someone said Nigeria only took active part in the anti-apartheid struggle for economic motivational purposes. He spoke with me. I drew the attention of Ambassador Oluyemi Adeniji to it, who said, okay, NIA, Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, should organize a study on our roles. But now, by the time efforts were made to carry out this research, money was not provided. So now, if Professor Awura was now saying, we have not managed well, we should do this, I will agree with him. But if he's raising many issues, etc., we say, look, the problem is at the level of Nigeria. If you want to, manage, influence the future as it is, Nigeria must put on record, black and white, all that have been done, including, for instance, public servants contributing salaries, all those things. The bitter truth as of today is that Nigeria and South Africa are competitors. They are competing for leadership, relevance, influence in Africa. Anything short of that, I think, will be mistaken.
Well, but beyond the competition, we're talking about the humanism of Desmond Tutu, his contribution to the cause of justice, progress, equality, and the construction, or if you like, the reconstruction of African history or South African history, and the role that he was able to play for decades in that regard. But we now have Yemi Adamolekun. We don't have Yemi Adamolekun with us. Okay, is Modele Sharafa Yusuf with us? Okay, so we'll move on to the next subject. Professor Urawa and Professor Akintenewa, with 5 days to the end of the year. And with many year-end festivities in the air, Nigerians appear to have discarded all precautions as regards COVID-19. On the 25th of December 2021, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, confirmed 1,305 new cases and 21 deaths across Nigeria. To date, more than 236,000 cases have been confirmed, of which 357 cases have been discharged, while 3,014 deaths have been recorded in 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, in a move to prevent further spread, especially during the Yuletide. The Chairman, Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19, Boss Mustafa, announced that religious gatherings will be reduced to 50% capacity. But a spokesperson for the President of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Reverend Adebayo Oladeji, faulted the limitation of religious and social gatherings. He noted that such directives were always issued during Christian holidays. He, however, asked Christians to comply with the protocols listed by the government. Okay, classical case of talking from both sides of the mouth. But what we know is that Omicron is becoming Omicronos, not just in Nigeria, but elsewhere in the world. Although 2 days ago, the newspapers reported in the UK that look, this Omicron, yes, maybe spreading Omicronously, but it's not as bad as we think. And I think it was on the basis of that that the UK Prime Minister decided that, look, people could go about, freely during Christmas. Although we're not sure. Maybe perhaps in January, the United Kingdom will have to impose stricter protocols. In Nigeria, what we're told is that, well, the case, the prevalence rate, what they call the R rate, the reproduction rate, is going up. 500% rate, as reported by the Center for Disease Control. But at the same time, all Nigerians need to do is to just be careful. Avoid unnecessary liaison, gathering, use your mask, wash your hands, observe the basic protocols. I don't know whether anybody will obey that. I don't even know whether Prof sitting next to me here will obey it because he doesn't seem to believe in COVID-19. But Yemi Adamalekun is here now, right now. Yemi, it's good to see you. I was worried when we couldn't connect with you.
It's good to see you as well. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Prof. Good to see you.
Merry Christmas, Yemi Adamalekun. Quickly, I would like you to comment on the bigger issue about Desmond Tutu, who is, like you, an activist. And then very quickly, this other issue about Omicron, COVID-19, and how Nigerians should behave as they go about Christmas. I saw people going about like smallpox yesterday and today. And also, government is warning about December 31st and, the crossover night.
Watch night service.
Yes. I know you are not going to any cross. Well, I don't know. Over to you.
Thank you. I think it was Prof that said it says all of us will die eventually. And Desmond Tutu has lived a really good life. Dying at 91 is really, he lived well and he lived a long life. He's been ill for a while. So I guess for me, I say that to say that it's not too painful in the sense that it's not that he died, I guess, at his prime when he was still really, really active. But I think two things I would say about the example he led. I think it was Professor Badejo that was talking about liberation theology. And even though that's associated with South Africa, or Latin America rather, and not as much with
and also with Cardinal Sin of the Philippines. That's another subject.
Yes, indeed, and the Philippines as well, definitely. But I think for me, the important factor of it was the fact that Archbishop Tutu lived out the tenets of the Christian faith. And I find that very interesting for a country like Nigeria, which is a parallel I draw often. You have a church in every street corner. You have on some streets, you have multiple churches. But the fact that we haven't taken this element of our faith in being very vocal about issues of injustice. But for Bishop Tutu, and he was very clear about that his position was not political, that this has nothing to do with politics. He was, as was said earlier as well, very critical of the ANC in terms of their use of violence. But for him, he just could not reconcile being a man of the cloth, a clergy, with being silent in the face of such clear violations of really the principles of his faith. All men are created equal. He was mentored by white ministers. And so to then also be seen as not equal was not something that he just refused to reconcile with. And I think that's a really important lesson. And not just for white and black relations that were quite clear in terms of race, but even within Nigeria, where we have such issues of injustice, very clear, either be it now in recent years, even religious, if we want to use that, and the tie to politics. So religious, ethnic divisions as it ties to politics and how those things are amplified. So really just want to celebrate him for the man that is. Was one of my personal regrets in life that I never got a chance to meet him. I was in Cape Town in 2017. My hotel was actually across the street from the church that he was assigned to, but I believe he was ill at the time. So when I went to church, he wasn't there. But really a great man. And not just for South Africa. I think one of the things that he believed that I think is really very interesting, that doesn't get talked about much, was the fact that he said human beings have a right to choose to die. And that for people of faith who believe that God giveth and God taketh away, saying that human beings do have should be given the opportunity to decide when they're done with life and when they want to take themselves was a controversial position that he held. And on the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, as a final note, it was interesting for me that both sides rejected the report of the committee. And so the report that I'm not quite sure if anything really came out of that report or was used in any way. And Nigeria's Truth and Reconciliation report as well, that was chaired by Bishop Kuka, who is probably Nigeria's closest clergy that has been consistently vocal about issues of justice as well. And also a man who doesn't shy away from controversy, a man whose words are often twisted, so not what he said, but a man who's also very clear that he cannot be a man of the cloth and a man who stands for peace and believes in the Christian faith and be quiet in the face of so many things going wrong. He also chaired our Truth and Reconciliation Committee. And I'm not quite sure, Mr. Abati, whatever happened to that document? Was it used in any way? It was co-chair, I believe, with Justice, his name escapes me, but Justice, they co-chaired the committee.
Okay, well, thank you. It was, thank you, Yemi Adamalekun. I recall that Father Kuka, or Bishop Kuka, wrote a book on all of this, and some of the issues arising from that process have been part of the conversation. So, Archbishop Desmond Tutu died 90. Before him, I think Cardinal Sin, right? Archbishop Sin of Philippines, the Archbishop of Manila, he died at 76. And we have these bishops who speak the truth to power from the pulpit, and that I think is a very important message. And in Latin America, we have had the issue about the prophetic church, how you can use the platform of the church to speak the truth to power, not to use it to destroy the world.
I think Prof, here in Nigeria,
yes,
our bishop, Catholic bishop in Sokoto, Kuka, Matthew
Yes.
Kuka, is the Nigerian replica of Desmond Tutu. As Yemi rightly pointed out, if you look at what Matthew Kuka has been saying every time, fighting for the oppressed, I think that we should extend our condolences first and a priori to Matthew Kuka here in Nigeria before extending that one to the relations of Desmond Tutu elsewhere. Because the legacy, the blood flowing in the capillaries of Desmond Tutu appear to be the same blood flowing in the system of Matthew Kuka.
Well, Prof, the issue right away is the point that has been made by George Eusane, Father George Eusane, who was Deputy Secretary General to Bishop Kuka when he was Secretary General of the Catholic Secretariat, about the prophetic church, the role of the church in society. I think that's what we should focus on, because Cardinal John Onayeka,
the same thing, yes.
Cardinal Kaigama, John Kaigama, all of them, they talk about this, that the church has a role to play, and that role to play is about the progress of society. Okay? So we have to continue to think in terms of how religion plays role in
the
society.
Christian leader, you are saying that probably he's speaking from both sides of his mouth.
No, those are Pentecostal pastors.
Yeah, but you see, he raised one critical point that we should not miss. He asked the question, why is it that when it is a Christian festive period, that's the time they will now say not more than 50% capacity? It's a critical point. It's a critical point. So
Okay.
even if he's a Pentecostal or speaking from both sides of the mouth, we must answer the question. He raised it. So why was it not raised before? Why is it always when there's a Christian something that they suddenly remember that now gathering should not exceed 50% or something? These are critical issues.
Anyway, Prof, let's turn this into a seminar. This is a television program, so we have to move on. It's no longer news, by the way, that President Muhammadu Buhari has declined assent to the amended electoral bill. However, many Nigerians are still waiting to see if the National Assembly will veto the president to pass the bill into law. In a letter to the lawmakers, the president of Nigeria explained that his decision not to sign the bill was informed by advice from relevant ministries, departments, and agencies of government after a thorough review. President Buhari pointed out that the mandatory use of direct primaries for all political parties in the country will be too expensive to execute. He also added that such clause will put a financial burden on Nigeria's slim resources. Okay, here we are. The Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021. The president is digging his feet into the ground and saying no. Because of direct and indirect primaries, this will not work. So what do we think? Yemi Adamalekun, you are the civil society champion. Let me start with you. What do you think? Hello, Yemi?
Sorry, I'm here. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Your views on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill and the furore that we have witnessed week-long.
Before we do that, I just wanted to comment quickly on Omicron. And I just wanted to say I agree with Professor Akinterewa. It's not at the time when Christians who are doing crossover or watch night service or whatever you want to call it, that you now suddenly remember 50% capacity. When the hotel was full to the brim with people dancing to music, nobody said 50% capacity. When people are doing parties all up and down the country, from wedding to funeral to just get together because it was someone's birthday or whatever, nobody said nor enforced a 50% capacity. So I think where we've gotten to with COVID, and I mean, the states can only do their best to educate. Since we're not in shutdown mode anymore, and we're not actively enforcing numbers, then the best is to let people know what is at stake. Delta was virulent and deadly. Omicron is spreading widely, but it feels to a lot of people like regular flu symptoms or malaria. So people are taking their chances. We're all adults. So if that's what the state wants to position as, we've given you information. So if you now decide you want to go to a crowd, and if you catch it and you deal with it, hey. But you cannot pick and choose where you want to enforce limits. So saying that for church services, I think, is hypocritical. And again, it goes back to this conversations around religious issues and ethnic issues in Nigeria. So just my little two cover on that one. And I do agree with also Professor Badejo that unfortunately Nigeria is not where it should be in terms of leading vaccinations or even just making testing and vaccinating people a more seamless process. But again, that's a larger issue, not just about COVID-19. Now, to your point about the Electoral Amendment Bill, I think Mr. President's letter was very clear. He basically says he doesn't support direct primaries, and so the National Assembly should go back to the table and look at it. The reasons he gives, I think, are really not accurate, to be quite honest. But the more fundamental issue is that direct primaries are just one of the many improvements that the bill seeks to make on our electoral process. Two of the ones that I think are extremely important that we shouldn't lose sight of is electronic transmission of results. There was huge uproar on that when the Senate and House of Assembly, or one of them, tried to take it out. But citizens spoke and it was put right back in. And secondly, timing or powers that INEC has. So for example, in the past, a party would do a primary, Ruben Abati would win very clearly, INEC would see it. But by the time the list gets to Abuja, Professor Awarawa's name would be the name of the candidate. And unfortunately, INEC had no powers to change that. Then secondly, we're declaring results. Someone, they use professor. So Professor Akintarenwa, let's say he's the one declaring. Someone puts a gun to Professor Akintarenwa's head and he writes Ruben Abati's name as the winner. But it was actually Yemi Adamolekun that won. Again, INEC had no powers to turn that over. It had to go to court. And politicians did that deliberately because they figured when they get to court, they can find their way around getting a judgment that suits them. So therefore, which is why somebody who came fourth is suddenly the governor of a state, but let's leave that one. But so those two things, for example, have changed in the bill. INEC now has the powers to say, no, we observed that primary. It was Ruben Abati that won. So we're not putting David Aworawa's name on the ballot paper. Or if someone was under duress, forced to declare a result, INEC can also say, no, we're not accepting that result. So in light of the other things that improve our electoral process, I would say that the National Assembly should agree with Mr. President and say political parties can determine whatever mode of primaries they want so we can move on. What is unfortunate about it, and the NBA letter signed by Olumide Akpata speaks to this very, very clearly. Mr. President had 30 days to review this, and he decided to now comment on day 31, number one. Number two, given the importance of the Electoral Amendment Bill and Mr. President's stated concern or interest in ensuring that one of his legacies is a much better electoral process, one would think that they would have invested time, i.e. the presidency, to engage the National Assembly so that all these issues are ironed out and there's a clear bill that everybody agrees on, goes to Mr. President's table, he signs it within 1 week, and everybody's clapping, yay, we can move on in life. But unfortunately, this wasn't the case. So for me, it does speak a lot, again, to Mr. President's predisposition to just really not taking things seriously, if I want to use that word. And especially in the light of something like this, that a lot of, if we look at the evolution of our political parties, in Lagos and in Imo, where direct primaries were used to produce the candidates, the total number of votes in the indirect primaries was was a lot more than the total number of people that voted in the elections. So it really then makes you doubt what that process is. But if done properly, what it forces political parties to do is ensure that your database of members is clear. Like everybody can access who is a member of PDP in Akure North, who is a member of APC in Akure North. They're clear stats, clear data. And I think it's unfortunate that this opportunity to ensure that our political parties are transparent and accountable, that Mr. President is not letting us go down that route. On the issue of financing, INEC was very clear that we're ready. If that's the way we choose to do this thing, we are ready to go along. But be that as it may, there are other things in the bill that are good for electoral process. And I think we should just chalk up the direct primaries as something to fight for at a later date and get get the bill signed so we have an act that we can work with for the upcoming elections.
Okay, thank you very much, Yemi. Do you know all these things you were talking about evolution and electoral bill, this and that? You know, the only thing that I kept hearing is Ruben Abati is a winner. Ruben Abati will win this. Ruben Abati will win that. You are doing very well, you know. I like to hear that I'm a winner. Yeah, Ruben Abati won this, Ruben Abati won that. But let's go.
If that's what you heard, that's good. That's good, that's good.
That's the part of it that I had, though. I mean, Prof, am I not a winner?
You have always been a winner. And there's no reason why you should not continue to win.
Thank you, Yemi. You know what it is all about. Okay, very quickly, let's go to Professor David Aworawa. Professor Aworawa, what do you think of all this back and forth about the Electoral Act Amendment Bill? And what should we expect in January?
Well, I said it last week that the bill, the veto of the president, that Parliament will not override it. You know, we're hearing that they were collecting signatures and all that, and that the bill that was not signed by the president, that Parliament would override the president's veto. And I said, not this Parliament. I have many friends among them. I spoke with them. And I said, that will not likely happen. And it hasn't happened. In January, it will not happen. So the option we are left with is for Parliament to go back and take off that, review that clause and put both options, either direct or indirect. The political parties should have a choice, to do that. I said that it was a mistake in the first place, the Parliament was playing to the hands of those who don't want the bill, to become an act. That they should have allowed that clause to remain as it was in the bill they are trying in the act they are trying to amend, either direct or indirect. The political parties should have the freedom to make a choice along that line. That if they didn't, touch that, the powers that don't want this bill to become an act will have no veneer, nothing to hide under. That the bill will be signed into law, it becomes an act. We said that before. Unfortunately, Parliament, for the interest of their members versus governors, decided to insist on, only direct. And of course, what we predicted has come to pass. So what will likely happen in January when Parliament reconvenes is that they will go back and revisit that clause and, return it to what it was in the act they are trying to amend to provide for both direct or indirect, allow political parties to make their choice along that line, and then return the bill to the president, so that the president can sign and it becomes an act. So we can move on. We said that several times before that there are many provisions in that bill that will transform elections in Nigeria. And that will also ensure good governance in the country, because some people know that the votes of the electorate will count. They will be compared to do better than they would otherwise have done. We said all of this before. And so what we are, the option we are left with is for Parliament to go back, review that clause, return to.
Hello, Professor Awurawa, are you with us?
What it was before?
Yeah.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the point is that Parliament will have to go back and review that clause and provide for both direct and indirect, allow political parties to make, their choice, so that the president can sign that bill into law. It becomes an act, and it becomes the basis for conducting election moving forward. There are so many good things in that bill that is too important, to allow just because of direct and indirect for the bill to become a dead one. It has to be revisited, reworked, returned to the president, it's signed into law, it becomes an act, and it becomes the basis for the conduct of the next election. I was part of the 2019 election, and one of the things that made me to participate was that the INEC people that came to us, they told us that there will be electronic transmission of results. That was my only interest. And I said, if that would be the case, then our elections will be free, fair, and transparent. But alas, when we got to the field, a different story came that, we can, there is now the other provision that there is now another option. And that was how they threw that away. But now that it has now returned to this bill that will be signed into law, if all of these things are cleaned up, I think that is just what Parliament should do. First thing, when they reconvene in January.
Well, Professor Akintenwa, what do you think?
I do not share the viewpoint of Professor Awurawa, for the simple fact that if a sending state decides to accredit a plenipotentiary, an extraordinary ambassador to a mission, and this plenipotentiary, extraordinary ambassador begins to work against the interest of the sending state, then there's a major problem. The problem is not at the level of the ambassador who is working against his country, but the problem is at the level of the country that sends such a person outside to represent its interest. Now, these parliamentarians can be likened to ambassadors. They were elected by the people. They have mandated sovereignty. The people of Nigeria delegated a part of their sovereignty to parliamentarians to go and protect their interests. Now, these parliamentarians at a point in time decided to protect, to defend the interest of the people by suggesting that, look, why not accommodate primary, direct primaries in such a way that what the French will call mainmise, the domineering factor of the governors, can be set aside in such a way that democratic values can be promoted, defended, advanced. Now, these same ambassadors that the parliamentarians are will now suddenly calm down because of the president saying he's not going along with them. What prevents them from insisting on their position if they were really and truly defending the interest of the people? They are not protecting the interest of the people. That means that the parliamentarians that are voting or becoming cowardly, then they are very bad ambassadors. They are very bad representatives. They should not, in this particular case, run away. The bitter truth in Nigeria is that political governance in Nigeria generally has been predicated on avoidance of challenges rather than confronting challenges. If Mr. President comes to the open to tell us there will be problem of funding, costing, etc., that is conjectural. Why wouldn't you now say, okay, since we are going to engage in direct primaries, set up your committee, how do we fund it? How do we get this money? When the government needs money, it's always running helter-skelter to take loans. They should sit down and see how to get money for this. You are talking about security by that particular time. Is there not a problem of insecurity right now? The insecurity in the country is deepening. So what is the big deal anticipating that we will have this? The government is talking about likely or a plethora of litigations. Have there not always been plethora of litigations? You see all these things. When Mr. President is telling ordinary people like us, like me, that he consulted the MDAs, ministries, departments, agencies, and that on that basis he is now refusing assent. No, he's only telling us like he's taking us for granted. We all know quite well that he decided to take decision on the basis of 36 governors only. Selfish interest. It's as simple as that. So the president doesn't need to be telling us lies about this. He has always told us that, look.
Okay, very quickly, we need to move on. But I would like to come back to you, Professor Awuro. Is it really possible for us to know what the will of the people is? Because Professor Akintenewa here is saying, oh, this is what the people want and all that. Do we really know what the will of the people is in any circumstance at all? Can the people of Nigeria, given our current circumstances, decide and say, oh, this is what we want with electoral bill? Who determines that? And these representatives, who are they at the end of the day? Are they really connected with their constituents? Very quickly, briefly, so that we can move on. Professor Awuro, can you hear me? Hello? I'm not hearing you.
He speaks.
Are you hearing?
I'm not hearing anything. The speaker.
Eh? Okay, I'm not hearing Professor Awuro. Okay, we'll come back to you, Professor Awuro, if you can hear me. But during the week, news broke that surprised many Nigerians, and that is the acquisition of 89.39% shareholding in Union Bank by the Titan Trust Bank. In a statement to the Nigerian Exchange Limited, NGX on Thursday. Union Global Partners Limited, Atlas Mara Limited, and other existing shareholders of the 104-year-old Union Bank agreed to divest 89.39% shareholding in Union Bank to the 2-year-old Titan Trust Bank. Well, that was quite some story during the week, and I was sitting in this same chair, Prof, and I was saying, I mean, what happens to us with the cover
investors?
Investors, so no, not investors, depositors.
Okay.
What happens to us? Because we had before that Union Bank was going to be taken over by Access Bank. Okay, Access Bank did not succeed. So we, members of the family, were asking questions. What is this all about? What will happen to our cover, that is there? Who is maintaining the fiduciary duties? And what does this merger and acquisition mean in real terms? Because under Godwin Emefiele, as governor of the central bank, we've seen a lot of mergers and acquisitions. And in business school, I attended business school, Said Business School, and I have a certificate to show for it. So these mergers and acquisitions, they don't just happen like that. They have implications. So what are the implications? Nobody is talking to us. The Titan Trust Bank people, they are saying, okay, they don't want to talk until M&A, everything is finalized. No, somebody should talk to us. Because since Ojiokwe, was it Ojiokwe that brought the topic? I've not been able to sleep with my cover.
That means you had a lot of
No, it's cover.
yeah.
Cover. I've not been able to sleep. I've been saying this Union Bank. I've been with them forever. So what are they doing? Prof, I know if you are not in a Union Bank, you are a father. Maybe you are in First Bank. They say these banks are having issues.
You see, my perception, my evaluation of the acquisition by the Titan Trust Bank is the crescendo of the journey from the 1970s when the bank used to be Barclays Bank. So in the 1970s, we all know the story as to how the Barclays Bank was changed to Union Bank, simply because Olusegun Obasanjo decided to sanction the United Kingdom for its role in the anti-apartheid struggle. Now from 1970s until 2021, it has been Union Bank. About 104 years of existence of the bank transformation to Union Bank. Now, it's now on the basis of the report we have that the Titan Trust Bank has acquired 89-point-something% of the equity. I think it is quite good in the sense that a challenge that has been created is how to manage the traditional, the classical, long-standing experience of Union Bank as an analog bank, all right, doing things the old ways, with the digitized approach to banking under Tunde Lema, who is known to be at least a modernist. So I look at it that, look, this is a positive development in the banking industry. But if you look at an article written in 2011 by Apan Ebimobowe and John Sophia, the article was entitled Mergers and Acquisition in the Nigerian Banking Industry and Explorative Investigation. I read the article and I found it very, very interesting. This is what he has said, I quote, "The consolidation that is mergers and acquisitions, activities in Nigeria did not meet the desired objective of liquidity, capital adequacy, and corporate governance, which have resulted to more troubled banks after the consolidation." He's now raising the issue that, look, the problem of acquiring new banks, consolidating, merging, is one issue entirely. But what about the role of bankers in terms of their corruption, in terms of their banking indiscipline? And we believe that, the writers believe that, unless you deal with the bankers to minimize their engagement in sharp practices, collaborating with outsiders to undermine, activities. They carried out an extensive research there. So, and I see that, okay, probably a word of advice to Lemon, the chairman of the will-be new bank, is that, look, you have succeeded in acquiring a new bank, Union Bank, but you will need to succeed in managing your staff in such a way that they will not become obstacle to growth and development of the bank. But I think that we should commend the efforts of the new managers of the bank. This is the way I want to look at it as at now.
Well, just by way of information, Tunde Lemon put out a short statement yesterday to say this is not about Tunde Lemon. It's not Tunde Lemon.
He's the chairman.
Yeah, it's not Tunde Lemon acquiring Union Bank.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a process, there's an institutional thing
yes.
that is involved. So I think that...
He has the largest, the biggest share to qualify to be the chairman.
No, he does not. Even the shareholding was specifically described. Just about 5%, that the group that he leads is, pushing. So it's not about him. It's about a process. But people like us, the couple investors, we're just saying, look, yes, they are talking about innovation, they are talking about transformation. Okay, what happens to the bank? This is a bank that many people are involved with.
Tunde Lemon can give you some equity,
No,
he can give you something so that you can join.
No, it's not about Tunde Lemon. It's about business. He is just providing leadership, right? And he's providing, consultancy. So this is not about Tunde Lemon. I'm sure he doesn't even have that money. He will not come out and say he has that.
He will never tell you he has that money.
No, I know him very well. He doesn't have the money.
All right. That's
Anyway, let's leave that. Let's go quickly to Yemi Adamolekun. Yemi, Union Bank. I don't know. I don't think you bank with Union Bank. But can we discuss it?
Thank you. But quickly, I just wanted to say something quickly on the electoral amendment bill. I think it was Professor Awura that was saying that he knew the National Assembly wasn't going to veto the president, even though they made the big song and dance in the Senate. And it's true, because the track record speaks to that. And I was on a radio program and someone used a statement that I thought was really nice. He said our National Assembly under this administration is a unit of the presidency. They are not an independent arm. So we shouldn't expect anything that puts them in a collision course with the president, even though they have the powers, that they don't do it. But I love that our National Assembly, I like the statement, but it's also an unfortunate state of affairs that our National Assembly is described as a unit under the presidency. But on Titan Trust Bank and Union Bank, to be honest, I'm a bit uneasy, and I'll say why. Tunde Lemon is a former deputy governor of the Central Bank. Tunde Lemon is chairman. Central Bank, yes, thank you. Tunde Lemon is chairman of Flutterwave. He's now chairman of this new bank. And in the statement issued by Union Bank, listen to this. It says that Titan Trust Bank has received industry-wide recognition, having been named Best Trade Finance Provider in Nigeria for 2022. I'm sorry, we're in 2021. How do you win an award for a year that has not happened? how are you best trade bank in a year under review that no trade has happened in? So there's just, and for that to be in a statement from Union Bank, just said, one, obviously nobody read it, but two, Titan Trust Bank is already positioning itself as a bank that I'm not even sure, but it's thing in this whole transaction that I like is that the name Union Bank is going to stay. At least they've given some thoughts to the value that the name has. Barclays history, Union Bank. And Union Bank has tried to, as Professor Akinterewa said, transform itself in the last few years. But the transaction, as Mr. Dr. Abatia said, which I agree with totally, has a bit of a K-leg. I don't know the details, but that bit of a statement from a 100-year-old bank saying that the bank that's acquiring them won an award for next year is problematic. And I hope they're able to sort out whatever it is that's happening.
Well, Yemi Adamalekun, thank you for that contribution. We have just about 3 minutes to the end of the show. So quickly, let me go to you, Professor David Awurawa. Prof? Professor Awurawa, are you there? I wanted your comment on this latest M&A development within the banking industry in Nigeria.
Yes, I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, clearly.
Okay, fine. You were asking me a question just before the audio disappointed, and you were asking whether Nigerians are actually we know what Nigerians think of this direct primary or no indirect primary thing and all that. And my simple answer to that is that we do not know. The direct primary thing will be an ideal, but
We know.
it is also still with its issues. We have had places where it was conducted and they just also submitted names since the database was not really known and all that. So it's not as if they are done direct primaries, then all the problems of primaries will have been resolved. Which is why we think that since there are many good things in the amendment to the Electoral Act, we should not take this controversy of direct or indirect to throw away the baby with the bathwater. So it is a good thing that if the parliamentary returns in January, they should just clean up the thing, put direct and indirect, return to the president for assent, and then we can have an act that will help us have a sane electoral system, the one that will, transform the elections in Nigeria and governance by implication. Now, back to the Titan Trust Bank thing. To me, it seemed as if the rabbit has swallowed the elephant. The whole Barclays Bank, Union Bank, with a long and rich history, now being practically, swallowed up by a bank that is practically unknown. It's something, a bit of disquiet about, Titan Trust Bank acquiring, Union Bank. But having said that, I agree with Professor Akinterewa's submission that the acquisition and all of that, the razzmatazz is just by the way. What is important is for them to fulfill their promise by repositioning Union Bank, by bringing into the operations of the bank, the highest, principles and practices of banking, eliminating corruption and all those sharp practices that, some, bankers have been associated with in Nigeria, such that Union Bank can be genuinely transformed to offer services to people. I have an account in Union Bank, and when I heard it, I was a bit, I had a bit of apprehension. But with the names I've had associated with the new acquisition, we just hope that those ethics of banking are followed so that Union Bank can be genuinely transformed.
Okay.
The Titan Trust Bank.
You have an account in Union Bank. I don't know what is inside your own account. I also have an account there.
I have an account there.
You also have an account
there.
Okay. Don't let us start comparing what is inside the account. I don't know what Professor Akinterewa has there. Oh, what Professor Awurawa has. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We just want our
bank. But it's not a Union Bank.
Anyway, you'll be watching this live, the Sunday talk show. Here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now. And thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again next week. Thank you.